Something in the way she moved. Hello, hello.
And you also played with the drummer from Frank Zappa.
Jimmy Carl Black.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was my best friend for a long time.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that relationship and what's happening with the music you did.
Well,
together.
I know. So, do you know these records? Because the introduction to him, I think I was 15 years old or something. This guy comes on this record after this weird guitar sound or something. Suddenly, everything stops and he says, "Hi, boys and girls. I'm Jimmy Carl Black, and I'm the Indian of the group." And, this was in Colorado, and, we loved Indians and we loved hippies, and it was like, gee, an Indian hippie in a rock band. This is just too much. It's just incredible. So we would just stare at the pictures on this record, freak out. The first time I saw the record, the woman in the record store comes over to me and she says, "You better put that down. You're a good boy. You don't want that." So then I really wanted to have a copy, and I really didn't like it at all. Half of it was like old rhythm and blues stuff that I couldn't stand, and then the rest of it just sounded like the worst jam session you'd ever heard. I mean, it sounded worse than the shit we were doing when we played with our tape recorders. But then when the next one came out, I thought that was really getting better, and then the third one, the Sgt. Pepper one, I really thought was funny. Then we were really sold, and that was the one where he says, "I'm Jimmy Carl Black." And that caught on in my school, like when we had the gym class, the physical education, which the gym coach was like a Nazi. He was this horrible, creepy guy, and he would call the roll, and somebody would always say, "I'm Jimmy Carl Black, and I'm the Indian of the group." And he would go, "Who said that? What's that mean?" He was just, so this was a fascinating thing about just saying this on this record. I don't know why, and a lot of people are kind of obsessed with it. It's really strange. Years later, then when he moved to Austin, Texas, one night I was recording, and somebody gave me his phone number, and we were going to try to get him to come down to the studio, and I'm really happy that he wasn't there, because I learned later that he got really sick of people constantly asking him to come record some stupid thing and then not paying him, which was, of course, my plan. So I didn't do that. But then I got an opportunity from a German festival, the Moors Festival. Back then they used to have this improvisation workshop every year. And if you were hired to be the chef, that meant you could hire 12 people to come. All expenses paid, $1,000 for the week or something. Mm-hmm. So it was a decent job. You could call people out of the blue and offer them. It wasn't just like, "Oh, I'm just being a bullshit fool, come work for free." It was not like a huge job, but still something pretty good. So I called Jimmy up and offered him this when I had this opportunity. We called this the Daffy Duck Dozen. But he said, and then he said, "Are you going to call Don Preston?" And I said, "I don't know Don Preston I don't know him. I'm not going to call him, And he said, no, Donnie would be interested. Give him a call." So I call him up. I said, "Jimmy Carl Black told me to." "Oh." So I started explaining. I said, they have this event. They get 12 people. They have 2 different rooms. You meet every morning. You can go to either room. You can go back and forth every 5 minutes if you want. It's completely free. You can just play whatever you want. There's no structure. There's no tunes. Oh, that's just going to be a lot of masturbating. That's going to be terrible. So he goes into this whole list of reasons why music like that, events like that are shit. And, I said, "Look, I understand what you're saying, and I've participated the year before with Hans Reichel." And I said, "Yeah, some of it was really absolutely horrible shit, because they had some people that always played really loud no matter what was going on." I said they even had to have a meeting about playing too loud, which I didn't go to because I don't do that, and 2, I was in Venlo smoking dope. So anyway, they had this meeting. Anyway, but so I knew, I knew what he was talking about, and I let him, talk about it, about how you needed to have. And I said, "Look," I said, "you're in charge of what you do. If you go down to one of the stages and want to play some of your written pieces, just take them out and start playing them." I said, "There's going to be some good musicians there." No, it's not going to. So finally, I said, "Well, look, Don," I said, "you know, you're a hero. I love your music. It's great to get a chance to talk to you. Can I go?" I said, "I didn't think you wanted to go." "Oh, no, I want to go." So he was like totally into going. And he did some nice things at that. We had Ashwin Batish came, the sitar player. He's still very active. At that time, he had a kind of a hit record in the German discos, the Bombay Boogie. We had some country and western musicians, a banjo player, and one of the guys from Camper Van Beethoven, Brian Ritchie from the Violent Femmes. We had quite a neat combination of people. Strangely, the guy that runs the festival just hated it. He really, Burkhard Hennen, he said, "Some of what you did I like, but a lot of it I don't like." So I never got hired again, but they stopped doing that, putting so much money into that event. But it was a fun thing. It was horrible the way they would make you play on the main stage, which was a bad scene because the event was about the workshops. You never had all the people on one stage at the same time. Then you had to kind of organize something with the project that would kind of reflected the best parts of it. So some of it was okay, but I said to him, "Why put this on the main stage? Just leave it the way it is." But anyway, that's how I met Jimmy, and then the next thing that happened that was really important in that relationship was that his wife got hired by the Army to teach. Her specialty was people with learning disability. She got hired to do that at an Army base in Italy. So the U.S. Army actually flew them over with all their possessions, even his car. When the Army does that, they took his Cadillac with Texas license plates and flew it over. So he had this car in Germany with Texas license plates. He never got German license plates. But he married this woman in this little village, and everybody liked him, so they just left him alone. That was weird. Yeah. But they left. They didn't like her with the Army, and they fired them. But then they just said, "Oh no, we're going to stay." So he was there, and then I decided to try doing a duet with him. He'd never played in a group without a bass player before. He was really wondering how that would work. But he was willing to try it. And we had a Dutch promoter, Wilhelm Knickney, who was booking the Theater Kikker in Utrecht at that point. He managed to find us 4 or 5 jobs. We got some jobs in Germany and Switzerland, and so we launched that duet with that tour. Okay. And then we kept that going for a long time. We played every possible place we could play, like twice, and U.S. a couple times. We revived it later on. Yeah, that was something that was a really good combination right up until the end. Yeah.
You also played with John Zorn together.
Yeah.
How was that? How did you get together, and what did you do? What kind
I
of
moved when they had a kind of amnesty for the draft dodgers from Vietnam, so I could come back from Canada. I moved to New York City. This all happened in the first week, basically. A friend of mine from California, Larry Oakes, he was visiting in New York, and he said, "I met this saxophone player last night that has your guitar records. He really likes you. You should call him up." That was John Zorn. So I went over to his house, and it was like, at that point, the stuff we were interested in doing with the music, nobody else wanted to do. Like most of the free jazz in New York at that point, you could describe it as all sounding the same in a way. If you superficially, there were some people with personalities and differences, but basically, something would kind of start off slowly and melodically, and then they would all scream for a while, and then it would end. A lot of the stuff sounded the same. We were kind of more interested in doing music. when he had these initial conversations, it was like, wow, it's like you're making a really good friend, because I would say, well, I really like the music in Tom and Jerry cartoons and Bugs Bunny cartoons, just changing all the time. If you don't even watch the cartoon. I'm just listening to what they're doing, a little bit of jazz, and then it does this and does that. And instead of going, well, why would you like that? He was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And so we started doing a lot of, we really collaborated very closely for quite a while. And then, whenever you do that with people, eventually what happens is you realize where the differences are. And my interest in doing recognizable, like, song material, that was something that when I first started doing that, he didn't react well to that at all. He didn't like that. He eventually also did some of the Naked City stuff. I was thinking, well, now he's coming around to playing some stuff like this, but it was done in a completely different way. But for 5 or 6 years, we really had a lot of stuff going on together that we liked to do, ranging from each other's compositions, free improvisation, and kind of regular bop gigs where we would get a bass player to play a walking bass line or this kind of thing. Yep. And we very slowly found other people to play with. That was, at one point, there was just one. There was a lady that played violin, Polly Bradfield. She understood his music and could deal with it. Then there were 2 or 3 new people. And finally, it was like everybody could play it. So that was really kind of it. I saw that happen with his stuff. I'm very selectively, like putting bands together and finding people that can deal with what I do. And also you have to find, because a lot of what I do has to do with touring, you have to find people that can deal with that offer something there, that drive, or you don't want somebody that has to get drunk every night just to deal with, people that are happy doing that. Yeah. Then you get this incredible thing where you're playing every night and the music just keeps getting more and more exciting, and that's kind of what I'm looking for when I do that. So.
And what are you doing now? What is your project now at the moment? What are you working on?
Well, I'm working on all these different songs, playing all this music in a certain way. I was thinking about something weird the other day that, back in America with the politics they're talking about, well, what does Donald Trump have to do before his supporters go, that's enough, And this is, I'm thinking, like, what do I have to play before everybody realizes that I can play normal music, I think this is really funny. Because I can play the most popular song ever written or something like that. And still it's like, what the hell are you doing? So this is kind of a challenge to really make a kind of I like the idea of having a very broad repertoire of music that I like. I don't ever want to play music I don't like, but music that I like, that I can go play almost anywhere. And if it's a really selective audience, they like it. Or if it's at a beach club where nobody has any idea who I am or anything, they also, hey, this is good, Jimi Hendrix, or country and western, that they like it. So, and then I look for specific, it's very slowly kind of put together groups of people that can play in band combinations and do this pull this kind of thing off. So. But I do a lot of solo work. Also, definitely 75% of it, I would say.
Okay, what in general inspires you to do all what you're doing? What do you like to have around, like books or art shows, traveling? What's going on there? Is there something that really grabs you? What interests you beside of music that influence you also to do that music? What you are doing?
Well, there are a lot of things. All the things you named, I'm interested in. I really like films. I like good television shows. I like, I guess, escaping into some kind of crazy action stuff. I used to really like to watch this show, The Sons of Anarchy. I like nature a lot, animals, children. It's been nice raising children. Yeah.
And what are your plans after this year? What are you going to do after today?
I'm playing in Rotterdam tomorrow night. Yeah, I've got a tour going on now until early in October. Bremen is coming up. A very extensive tour of Slovenia.
Wow.
I was very happy that a guy that had booked me a show in Slovenia when he was in high school in a little town called Arovšina. I was really impressed with this guy, you know, because he said, you know, we're going to stay with my parents, you know, and I said, how old are you? And he was, I'm 17. I said, this is incredible. I said that you're booking shows when you're 17. You know?
Yeah.
No, he contacted me last year and asked if I remembered him, and he said, would you like me to book you a little tour of Slovenia? There's like 5 or 6. We're not even playing in Maribor, but it's like 5 or 6 cities. And none of them are very far. That's a nice country. I like it. And some concerts in Italy.
And what are you doing when there's no music around? So just if you have a private life, if this is possible, what are you doing then? What's going on then?
Well, you mean when I'm not being paid to play somewhere?
Exactly.
Well, I get up really early in the morning. I feed my cats. And there's no children at home anymore, so I get up really early and practice guitar for some hours. And then it depends. I'm usually busy organizing. I organize all the tours myself, you know, with some people helping me. But so it's usually that sometimes can keep you really busy. All the little things you have to do, questions you have to answer, things you have to send. I produce a lot of recordings. I'm very efficient with that. We put out, right before this tour, 7 new CDs in conjunction with the tour, old and new. And, you know, I published this, I've got a copy of it here. I don't know if you see, I published this book 2 years ago called Dreamery. And I'm working on another book. So, no, I'm not someone that runs out of things to do. I always have a lot of things that I'm involved in. I do a lot of visual art and stuff too. Okay. So I used to do a lot of gardening, but I have arthritis, so I have to be careful because where I live, it's like a jungle. It's tough work in the garden, so I've kind of backed off on that. But
what is the book about? The last one.
Well, the last one is it's kind of autobiographical. Different parts about different parts of my life, tour diaries, and then it's called Dreamery because I always I write down dreams when I can remember them. So they're all, there's hundreds and hundreds of really crazy dreams in this book. And the new one I'm working on has more to do with music theory and music performance, but also it has dreams in it too. So. It's not like really straight, but
And are you teaching?
Sometimes, not like a regular thing. I teach work. Usually, like on this trip, I've got several workshop things I'm doing in Italy. But and I do lectures sometimes.
How is that going to do that? Do you like that?
I like it. I'd like to do more of it. I don't think, from what my friends have told me, that it's a good idea to get a full-time job as a professor. Especially Anthony Braxton, told me, don't do it. Because you spend a lot of time going to stupid meetings and things. It's, you know, and I whatever's going on, I like to spend a lot of time playing music. So I don't want a lot of things to interfere with that. These workshop things, though, that's what you're doing. You're playing music. You're talking to people about what you do. That part of it's really easy. I can just talk about what I've been doing since I was in my 20s, which says it's 40 years of bullshit, and I can just talk about it without preparing anything. So, and for young people, it's very educational, just to hear about what goes on, just to have somebody answer your questions about things. I remember going to a workshop with this guy, Paul Horn, like recorded the flute and the Taj Mahal and all this stuff. So this guy was really pretentious, you know, and he was doing this workshop in Western Canada, and this guy says, "Mr. Horn, can you give us any advice about getting bookings when we become professional?" He was like, "No, I don't want you taking my work from me." And he was like, "Figure that out yourself." And I thought, why can't this guy tell some college students some suggestions about how you get jobs? He must have something he can tell them. But no, he just basically said, go screw yourself. So I thought, if I ever am in a position, I would be happy to share whatever information I have. It's not like some student is going to go out and steal my job from me or something. Yeah. So a lot of what I did that another book years ago called "I Hate the Man That Runs This Bar," that I was asked to do by Mix Books. They publish a lot of musical education books, and that's all about being a professional musician. Every aspect of it I could think of: self-publishing, booking yourself, organizing tours, running a band, everything that you have to do. So I think that's good to share that information. It's not always appropriate. The way I do things is not the way everybody wants to do things, but it's good to be able to talk to people about it. And then, with all this stuff, with all these styles of music, and some music is so normal and some is so weird, people need to understand that musicians are all part of a kind of a family, that if I meet a classical musician or somebody that plays in a disco band on a boat, we're brothers in a way. We talk right away about the life. It's not like, "Oh, you play weird music." The musicians aren't like that. So, and it's interesting too. Like, I meet someone that's works on a cruise ship, and I'll be like, "Man, that must be great to have a job every night."
Every night, yeah.
A contract, and they're like, "You crazy? I'd love to do what you do. You get to do what you want. You play the music you want. You don't just play Lionel Richie or something." So, that's an interesting thing when you meet other musicians, to be able to talk about things like that, and all this stylistic stuff that separates people. It's not there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, can you tell me what the best sound is for you? Did you had an experience of something that was so cool, sound-wise, that you thought, wow, that was really grabbing me, that was really cool?
You mean from listening?
Yeah, listening and maybe playing,
Some concert situations for me are really nice, certain things like where a setting, you can think of something, for instance, a couple of years ago when one of my daughters and her boyfriend were traveling with me, there was a solo banjo recital in a church in Tilburg. Mm-hmm. And it was completely packed, and the sound was beautiful. And, she hears me playing these shitty bars around North Carolina, and she said, "Oh, it was so nice to see you play a real concert like this, where the sound was so good and the audience was and it was such a lovely setting." So things like that are really great.
Yeah. What do you like about playing the banjo? You just mentioned you played solo concerts with the banjo.
Well, it's a really incredible, interesting instrument, and it hasn't really been used in that many styles of music as much as it could be. So I've been kind of bringing it in, doing different things with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what does beauty mean for you? Beauty in general. What is that for you?
Well, that could be a lot of different things,
Yeah. Like, give me an example.
Well, I mean, it could go all the way from this description I had of this banjo sounding so beautiful in this church, which I think you understand, to like I remember, to me, one of the most incredible musical things I ever heard was in Amsterdam, watching them destroy a big building with two really huge machines. And what was really funny was the company that made these machines is called Van Vliet. So there was the two Van Vliet. I can't remember, I don't know what they call these things. They're giant with a thing like a spoon, but with edges, And they were just one on one side of this concrete building and one on the other, just tearing it to pieces, scraping it until the concrete all fell down to the ground. And so there's a coffee shop in Amsterdam, I don't know if it's still there, The Boat. It was on the Oudeschans on a boat. So we were sitting on top of this boat, watching this happening. And it to me was like the most. I thought all these people playing avant-garde music, they can go to hell because this is just the real thing, and it's like not even done with it. They don't even know they're making music. It was so destructive, and also like the sound of it was so incredible. And then the little Van Vliet part. No, some of the things. Another night I remember being in a bar and I was looking for a place to just hang out, and there was no dressing room, and they had a one stage downstairs with rock and roll, and they had a jazz band playing upstairs, and I was in between. And both the bands weren't very good, but when you combine them, they really sounded great. It was like the most incredible sounding kind of rock and roll with jazz on top of it. So, no, I'm always kind of listening for things that stimulate me, but it isn't always something anyone intended as music.
Like what?
Well, I just described several.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's.
Yeah. Can you tell me a story? What happened funny on a tour? Something. In the past. I mean, touring is a hard job, right?
Yeah, but what the things that happen, sometimes the things that happen that are really bad are so funny. One night I flew into, trying to remember where I was coming from. I stopped at the airport in Zagreb. I had dinner with somebody, but then I was going on to Dubrovnik, right? So I get to Dubrovnik. And they had told me they were picking me up, right? So I'm waiting and nobody comes. And so I called the guy finally. I said, "What the hell's going on?" He said, he said, "I had an accident in Ljubljana. I broke my leg. I had to go into the hospital." I said, "But didn't they make an announcement at the airport for you?" I said, "No, they didn't announce anything." They said, "Oh, they were supposed to tell you to take the bus into the city." I said, "Oh, that's great." I said, "I know that the last bus into the city just left the airport." So he goes, "No problem. I call you taxi." Right? So this taxi shows up. I go out there with my stuff. I said, "Are you waiting for me?" He goes, Yeah, your taxi, no problem." So I get in the taxi. He goes, "Where do you go?" I said, "Didn't someone call you and tell you to pick me up? They're telling you where to take me." And he goes, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." So, so then this other taxi comes up, the right one. So I had to load into the other taxi from this first one. And that guy took me into town where they had decided the concert, which was going to be the next night, was canceled because the roof of the building fell in. Sometimes there's just nothing you can do. They tell you the concert's canceled, the place is burned down or something. There's no argument. So, well, that's it. So they took me to this, they said, "You stay at punk rock club." So we go to this punk rock club, You could smell it from a mile away. It was incredible. So we go into this place, and there's nothing going on. They took me back to this band room where there were all these beds, and I was like, "Is anybody else showing up to sleep here tonight?" And they said, "No, French punk rock band, 5-piece band, gets lost in Bosnia. They're not coming. Show canceled." So I had this place to myself, right? And then, it's like you never know what to expect. You wake up in the morning, go outside, and there's the Adriatic. So beautiful view. And some punk is making like superb cappuccino, and he's got the breakfast bakery stuff. And it was like a 5-star hotel suddenly. Yeah, so you just never know what's going to go on. I'll tell you my favorite story, ever, is when I went to Moscow to play the first time. There was a guy, I come out through this is the most chaotic airport I've ever seen, arriving in Moscow. And it's like they really didn't even care that who I was or anything. They just come off this plane, come out. There's a guy like in a suit holding a sign that says Eugene Chadbourne, fuckhead. So I'm like, oh, you must be waiting for me. And he says, no English. So this guy is a driver. I'm like, who's fuckhead? No English. Driver. No English. So he takes me to where I'm staying, which is the guest house of the Georgian embassy. Nobody's speaking English in there either. So I'm completely exhausted flying in from the States, so I go to sleep. The promoter hasn't contacted me at all. Every couple of hours the phone rings. There's the promoter now. Pick it up. And then it'll be a woman's voice. Husband? You want the woman? So this guy at the embassy, right? The guy at the guest house must have put the word out. There's an American guy just showed up and all these hookers are calling. It was unbelievable. I could have had 5 or 6 women if I wanted. So I'm sleeping. Finally, these people get in touch with me. But I said, who is fuck? Why would this guy have this sign, fuckhead? And then it turns out Fuckhead was the name of a band from Vienna. He was picking them up too. So.
Great. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Unbelievable. Very cool. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good.